All right, let's jump right in today. We're taking a deep dive into something you probably haven't thought much about, the World Sweeping Association.
You got it. And you might be thinking, hold on, an entire association just for sweeping?
That was my first thought, too.
Well, you're not the only one, trust me. Our listener is curious about the WSA, and we're going to unpack it all today. How it affects contractors, folks who need sweeping done. We're covering it all.
Perfect. And we've got a ton of great material straight from the source to help us do just that.
We do. Membership guides, the WSA website, even their ethics statement.
Okay, so full disclosure, my initial reaction was sweeping. Seriously. I mean, it seems pretty basic, right? Broom, dustpan, done.
Haha, I get it. But, well, when you start to think about it, some sweeping jobs are massive.
True.
Huge construction sites after demolitions or keeping those gigantic parking lots clean.
Okay, yeah, that's not just a quick sweep.
Exactly. You're talking specialized equipment, tons of dust and debris, even environmental rules to follow.
Okay, now it's making more sense. So tell me about this WSA, this organization keeping the world well swept.
Right. The World Sweeping Association, the WSA, is all about professionalism in the sweeping world.
Gotcha.
Standards, almost like think of those old medieval guilds making sure work was high quality and protecting their craft.
Interesting comparison.
Their mission is to give folks in the sweeping industry, contractors specifically, the information and resources they need to do things right.
Makes sense. But why is an organization like this necessary? It's not like sweeping is rocket science.
That's actually a key point. Unlike, say, plumbers or electricians, there often aren't strict rules for sweeping contractors.
Really?
So anyone with a truck and a broom could, technically, call themselves a pro.
Wow, I had no idea.
So that's where the WSA comes in. They set ethical and professional standards that go above and beyond any basic regulations.
So they're kind of like the sweeping police, making sure everyone is playing by the rules, or at least some agreed upon best practices.
Exactly. And one of their big things is this ethics in power sweeping statement. Every WSA member signs it.
I saw that mentioned in one of the documents.
Yeah, and it's more than just words on paper. It's a real commitment to operating ethically, which could be huge for clients.
For sure. Especially for like a property manager dealing with sensitive areas or potential liability.
Right. Knowing a contractor is WSA certified, it adds a layer of professionalism,
Hmm.
makes them more accountable.
Definitely. Now, this membership guide, it talks about a lot of benefits for contractors who join the WSA. It's like a whole sweeping university almost.
It really is. They've got over 250 articles on best practices, legal stuff, even technical guides.
Wow.
Need to know how to clean a parking garage after a blizzard. They've got an article for that.
Amazing.
And it's not just information overload. They have a mentoring program, too, so experienced contractors can guide the newer folks.
That's great, especially for people just starting out, like having a seasoned pro giving you advice.
Even have a podcast training program.
Seriously, a sweeping podcast.
Imagine that. Sweepers from all over sharing their tips and tricks.
Okay, they're definitely taking care of their members. But what about the clients? What's in it for them, besides knowing they're hiring ethical contractors?
The WSA website tackles that head-on, actually. There's a section called Why Property Managers Specify WSA Members.
Catchy. So what do they highlight?
Well, for one, it's easy to find a good contractor using their contractor locator tool.
Oh, so you don't have to just randomly search online or rely on word of mouth.
Exactly. Search for WSA members in your area, knowing they've met certain standards.
Makes things much easier for property managers. They don't have to be sweeping experts themselves. They can just look for that WSA stamp of approval.
That's it. And speaking of expertise, did you know the WSA has won, multiple Apex awards for their publications?
Awards for sweeping publications. Who knew?
Uh-huh, right. But it shows how dedicated they are to putting out top-notch information. They're not just throwing any old thing out there.
So they're not just promoting their own group, they're actually trying to elevate the whole industry.
That's right. And they're not afraid to shake things up either. They held the very first Manufacturer Independent Sweeping Conference back in 2017.
Wait, so they got competitors from different equipment brands all together in one place?
Yep. Pretty bold, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it shows they're all about moving the industry forward, not just focusing on individual brands.
That's really impressive. And I noticed on their website they have a whole section for new people entering the sweeping business.
Oh, yeah. Guides, a free white paper called Introduction to Contract Sweeping,
Mhm.
even advice on buying used equipment.
They're basically walking you through the whole process, step by step.
Exactly. It's like a one-stop shop for anyone wanting to become a sweeper.
It's great that they're not just focusing on their existing members, they're helping to bring new people into the fold.
They're thinking about the future of the industry, building a community.
Wow, this is way more fascinating than I ever expected. Who knew there was so much to the world of sweeping?
I know, right?
Okay, so for our listener, what are the big takeaways so far?
I'd say the biggest one is that the WSA is filling a really crucial gap in an industry that often doesn't have much regulation.
So they're providing structure, guidance, and support where it's needed.
Exactly. And it benefits everyone, from those just starting out to the seasoned pros.
They're advocating for good sweeping, not just sweeping in general. It's actually pretty inspiring.
It is. And this is just the beginning. We'll be back with more on the World Sweeping Association after a quick break.
We're back, and I'm still kind of blown away by how much the WSA does for both the newbies and the old pros in sweeping. They're really focused on building a community, huh?
They are. It's impressive. And they've thought of everything. Remember that how-to guide we mentioned for people starting their own sweeping business?
Oh, yeah.
It's like the ultimate sweeping handbook.
The one they've been updating since 1996.
That's the one. Updated as recently as 2022.
Wow. Talk about commitment.
I know, right? People
Okay.
say it's one of the most thorough guides ever written about the industry.
I can see why. It covers what? Assessing the market, choosing equipment, setting prices, even how to find clients.
Yeah, pretty much everything you need to start and run a successful sweeping business.
And they even have that free white paper, too, Introduction to Contract Sweeping, to get people started.
Yep. And it's not just a basic overview either. It gets into the details, the nitty-gritty of the business.
So you really get a solid understanding of the industry.
Right, like different types of sweeping, you know,
Yeah.
construction cleanup versus parking lot maintenance, the equipment you need for each.
They're not just handing you a broom and saying, good luck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for those who maybe aren't ready to buy brand new equipment, they have a whole section on buying used sweepers.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Used equipment is a great way to start without spending a fortune.
It is, but it can be risky if you don't know what you're looking for.
Definitely.
That's where the WSA comes in. They provide advice on like what to check for, what questions to ask, how to avoid getting ripped off.
So they're helping people avoid those costly mistakes.
It really shows what they're all about.
Mm.
They seem to genuinely believe that a stronger sweeping industry benefits everyone.
Not just their own members.
Right. It's like a rising tide lifts all boats kind of philosophy.
I like that.
It's refreshing.
And it's more than just promoting the industry itself. It's about like helping people, right?
Right.
Start businesses, build careers.
Exactly. Contributing to their communities.
It's creating a ripple effect, you know? We talk a lot about skilled trades, but sweeping often gets overlooked.
It does, yeah.
But it's so important.
Huge impact.
The environmental impact alone. Think about it. Sweeping keeps pollutants out of our water, keeps our streets and parking lots safe.
It even helps maintain property values.
Right. It's easy to forget about until you imagine, what if nobody was doing it?
Chaos.
Exactly. And the WSA is out there championing these often invisible workers, giving them the tools they need to be successful.
And they're doing it all with such professionalism. This deep dive has really shown me how valuable they are.
Me too. I never thought I'd be this interested in sweeping.
It just goes to show you can learn something new anywhere.
For sure. Sometimes the most ordinary things can be the most impactful. We've talked a lot about the good stuff with the WSA, but are there any, I don't know, any other perspectives to consider?
That's a good question.
That last point is really sticking with me. How the WSA balances promoting the industry with, holding their members to a certain standard.
It's a tough balancing act for sure. And it makes you think about professional organizations in general, right? Are they mainly there to advocate for their members? Or to uphold standards, even if it means calling out their own?
It's like they're trying to wear two hats at once, cheerleader and referee.
Exactly. And the WSA seems to take that responsibility pretty seriously.
It takes a lot of confidence to do that, to say, let's all work together to raise the bar.
Totally. And that's where groups like the WSA can be so powerful, I think. They create a space for people to talk, share knowledge, and solve problems together.
So it goes beyond just setting rules. It's about building a community with a shared purpose. Makes you wonder what the future holds for them and for the sweeping industry as a whole.
It really does. And it leads to a question for our listener, I think. With sweeping not having a ton of formal regulation, how might organizations like the WSA shape the future of professional standards? Not just in sweeping, but in other fields too.
That's a great question to think about. Could this self-regulation model work in other industries that have similar challenges?
It's certainly something to consider. It really speaks to what we can accomplish when we work together.
Who knew sweeping could lead to such a thought-provoking conversation?
Right. This deep dive has been full of surprises, from the nitty-gritty of cleaning parking lots to these big questions about professional ethics.
It really has. From dusty parking lots to the nuances of professional ethics, it's been a wild ride. And I think we've all come away with a much deeper appreciation for the world of sweeping and for the work the WSA does. Well, thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the unexpected. And until next time, keep those brooms clean and those minds curious.